Hello and welcome to the Working Tools Masonic Podcast, where today will be part 2 of our interview with Robert Johnson.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Hello, I'm Very Worshipful Brother Matthew Appel here with Very Worshipful Brother David Colbeth down in the Grand Lodge of Washington. And we have our third of our 4 usual hosts, Worshipful Brother Steven Chung up in the Grand Lodge of British Columbia and Yukon. Unfortunately, Trevor couldn't be here this evening. He's not feeling too well, so we hope he feels better soon. And we have with us our special guest again, Robert Johnson, who is a Mason out in Illinois and host of a couple of podcasts and has written a book or two. And we're excited to have him back on the show. And so, Brother Robert, thank you again for coming out.
My pleasure, brothers. Thank you so much.
So I think when we left off, we were talking about you're starting the podcast with Whence Came You. How did you guys start with the working tools? Yeah, how did you get on the working tools? I know that story because I sent you an email. But how did the Masonic Roundtable group get started? Did you guys meet in a secret Mason's bar somewhere?
Yeah, it was super secret. There's this guy, John Ruark, who is a past master out of Virginia, and John is the biggest tech nerd you could imagine. He and I never met John, knew him, nothing at all. And one day I got an email where it was CC'd along with Juan Sepulveda, Jason Richards, our brother Tom Acousti, who was an original guy, and Nick Johnson, who ran the Millennial Freemason blog. And we didn't know John at all. Jason and John knew each other, and Tom and Nick knew each other, and Juan and I knew each other. Juan called me. I don't know how Juan got my phone number to this day. I had no clue. But he calls me up and he's like, "Hey, I'm a brother out of Florida. I'm an artist. I'm thinking about doing a podcast. And I just want you to know I'm not stepping on your toes or anything, I hope. Are you okay if I do a podcast?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, it's not a competition. Like, this is more education. This is great." And so that's how Juan and I, initially met. And so we didn't know John. John's this tech nerd again, and he was listening to a podcast on like Droid Life or something strange. I can't remember. And he thought, hey, he's a real lean startup kind of guy. So he thought, why don't we just go live on YouTube and record some conversations? And then he just cold emailed all of us and pull us all together. And we were like, I don't know, maybe, okay. And he was like, well, just do one. We'll just do one. If you guys don't like it, then we don't have to do it ever again. Like you promise your wife, just one science fiction movie, just one, it'll be fine. And, right. So long story short, we had great chemistry. And we just liked it so much, we continued to do it. And John had a great vision, still has awesome vision, and as well as Jason and Juan and myself. I think we all bring something unique to the table. Of course, Tom Acousti, who was with us for just, I think, 1 or 2 episodes. He backed out. He had other commitments. And Nick Johnson was with us for quite a long time also, and eventually had his own commitments that he needed to handle. I mean, Nick was, talk about active Freemason. I mean, this guy was it. Nick Johnson is also Mackey's Encyclopedia in person form. If you guys ever need to know a Masonic fact, it's Nick, but no relation to me. And that's how that got started. It was a really cool friendship. And I think it was 3 years ago when we did it was the first time we ever met in person. We all flew into the DC area. No, was longer ago than that. We went to Pennsylvania Academy of Masonic Knowledge, and that was the first time I think we all met. So it was a big deal. It was a lot of fun. Great,
Very cool.
Great group of guys. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting you say there's always room for more education and more things like that. And okay, so this isn't on the topic we were just talking about, but it spurs the question in me. Why is Masonry, why are lodges so bad at that? It seems like, we talk a good game, we make good men better, and you're going to improve your character and all that sort of good stuff. And it's in the lectures and all that sort of good stuff. But I don't feel like we don't do it well somehow. We're not actually, in a lot of cases. In some cases we are, don't get me wrong. There are great lodges out there, but in a lot of cases it just doesn't happen. Do you have is that something you've encountered too? Obviously you said you have, and in the movie wasn't as good as the book way.
Yeah, I mean, I think Freemasonry as an organization, to be this succinct, is that, in my opinion, Freemasonry as an organization is small and compared to other organizations worldwide. As things grow and, we got big box stores, everything can be bigger and bigger and bigger, but Freemasonry is not. And as such, we are always really thirsty for more members. And the thirst for more members doesn't always, like, that thirst is what's driving our existence sometimes. It's not to focus on the betterment or the lessons of the existing membership. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Education might not be the reason somebody comes to Freemasonry, but it's the reason they stay. I think in a lot of aspects, and whatever that education is, like maybe it is events, right? Or maybe it is whatever an active lodge needs to provide a reason to come back. I think education is just a great way to maintain a membership. What do you get for your membership? Is it just food that's not great always, or is it just writing checks and arguing? The platitudes go on forever, right? But writing checks or arguing over toilet seats and whatever the case is. Why are we not doing the education? I think it just comes down to our resources are kind of thin. We don't have experts, and maybe there's an expert in a lodge on a particular topic, but maybe it's not a Masonic topic. But I also think that's okay. If we've got a brother who's a marketing expert, then provide neat stuff about marketing and relate it back to Freemasonry. David, you said you were in real estate, at some point. So maybe a topic of education could have been like the history of real estate and Freemasonry, like the buildings and the land and what went into these and how these things were paid for. There's so many things that you can connect this stuff back to, either historically or philosophically. But it's just hard because I don't think we have a lot of time, the resource to do those things. We're so busy trying to breathe that we don't have time to thrive or to, it's like, hey, when I get on top of these bills one day, I'm going to go on a vacation. And we just never pay off the bills, right? We're always just struggling. But I think with the advent of new lodges and educational programs and zealous brothers, we'll get there. We're getting there. Turning a tugboat in a bathtub, right?
Well, there's a lot to be said for the extra efforts too. I mean, who says that the lodge is responsible for the education? It could just be the connection of the conduit. Like Matt and David participating in this podcast. And I'm sure that more people in your area now know of our podcast because they know you're participating in it. And our podcast does bring education to Masonry from that angle, right? No different than all the other podcasts out there. When they're searching for it, they'll find it. education is the hardest thing, but I think you were right in what you said there, Robert. We focus on trying to stay alive and get new members instead of providing good content. And I see in some lodges where they put the extra effort into that content. I saw some wasted efforts too, because nobody was wanting it, right? They were putting all these great things together, but nobody wanted it because it wasn't the type of education they were looking for. So they didn't have the 6-step program in place whereby you find out what those guys are looking for as they come through the door. And we make notes in our 6-step program. We've got notes on all the guys that come through, what they're looking for in masonry. And then we're trying to deliver it, whether it's through education or social or whatever.
You used a great word there, and it seems so simple, but I kept saying education, and you said content, and that's the key, is the content. Like, because that's such a better word for this umbrella. You got to know the content they're looking for, and that content's what is going to keep them coming back. We run through new guys coming in and out, and you start to see this affinity lodge type model, right? Lodge is built on education, or lodge is built on whatever. My mother lodge I had demitted from a couple of years ago because I'm just not going to pay dues to a lodge I'm not going to. Forever in debt to them, obviously. The lodge I'm a member of, primarily the active lodge, is just an education lodge. And I'll tell you something, there's something missing. There's something missing still. And it's the fact that personally, I like to go into a meeting once a week. Waukegan met every Monday for something, and I went. My current lodge, when we say it's only one night a month, and it never is, this lodge really is one night a month. So there's some, I do miss some of the fellowship, right? A lot of the fellowship. And when I'm there at lodge, man, I am hugging guys and, just, drinking everything everybody is saying up, because it's like I legitimately care and miss these dudes. And so that's content, I think, for me, and a reason that, I'm always going back, and the reason I'm active.
When your mother lodge, when you say they meet every week, I know a lot of lodges do meet either weekly or biweekly. We meet once a month too, but there's always seems to be something going on the Monday nights that we meet as well, whether it's building management or degree practice or something that we should be doing. Did they divide it into different types of meetings? Was it a business meeting on the first month or the second month, and then every other, or was it just lodge meeting every Monday, every week, and something different happened? Or what was? I'm curious about your experience. What was the weekly meeting? Was it a full meeting every week?
So it was a meeting every week, and you went regardless of if the lodge was opening. So the lodge would meet for either instruction on a degree, and it would just be our lodge experts. There wasn't like some grand lodge dude or, district lecturer or whatever coming in. It was our own people, putting boots to butts, getting guys, on the floor, doing rod work or march work, floor work, whatever you want to call it, prep steps, back hooks, all of these things. And then working with candidates in the foyer, just sitting there going over catechisms, talking. My experience with my coach was like 25 minutes of, let's see what you did over the last week, and then 45 minutes to an hour of life lessons, just him talking about stuff. And that was awesome. But that's what that was every single week. So the third Monday was always our stated meeting, and the other meetings were always either ritual practice or for fellowship or for something that we were doing. We're going to clean this closet out. We're going to get these pictures hung up, whatever it was. There was always something to do. And even when it seemed like we had exhausted all things, it was like, hey, be down at the lodge because we're going to do this thing for this brother. Or like they would just make up something. whatever it was. And it was great. I liked that because it was something I knew every week, and my employer knew too. I was like, not taking advantage of the system here, right? But Masonry isn't a religion. But I told my employer, I said, my lodge meeting is my church, basically. So if you attempt to schedule me on a Monday evening or need me for a Monday night dinner with a client or something, I'm just going to tell them no. They were like, totally fair. Mondays are off limits. I'm at work 9 to 5. After that, I'm out. Bye-bye. So, and I got away with that forever. And I still get away with that because I'm good at what I do.
So I'm curious, what changed your perspective on, did you move, or did your affinity with your Monday night lodge every week? Did something happen or change? I mean, that you could talk about? I mean, maybe it was more serious.
Yeah, I think so. That's kind of personal question, but I'm happy to answer that. I'm glad to answer that. As I said, it wasn't like I didn't hate anything about it. I love all those guys. It's just, it comes down to the fact that I had worked hard in that lodge for 10 years. Yeah, just about 10 years. And it really, it was better now than it was when I came in. And it wasn't because of me. It was because of progressive masters that were leading up. And then I was able to be the master, and I continued their awesome work. And my year as master, I had like a list. I had the legal pad filled out with the names of the guys I wanted to come out to the lodge. I was going to fly guys out, get them on Zoom calls, put them up, before the big Zoom stuff was ever a thing. I wanted all this education. And what I got inundated with was degree work. And we had not had many degrees over the years. Some guys were just interested in going through at this particular time, whatever the reason was, in 2014, 2015. And I got inundated with degree work. I did, I think we brought in 9 Master Masons in my year, and no festivals or anything, but I think I gave the EA obligation to 9 guys, the Fellowcraft obligation to 9 guys, and the Master Mason I did 8 guys, because one of the guys who's coming through was the nephew of a past master, and he wanted to obligate. I was like, of course, right? And so we did all of those degrees, and it was awesome. And 2 of the guys we brought through was a guy named Corey Connor and a guy named Benjamin Short. And those 2, I mean, everybody we brought through is phenomenal. But these 2 guys, I have to say, if they ever listen to this, I hope they know that I love them dearly. They went back to back, like one after another. They kind of worked on catechism at the same time. And then they got into the line and they went through, and I was their secretary. I wasn't Ben's secretary. I wanted to be, but I was the secretary. So after I was done being master, I went right into the secretary chair, and I watched Corey Connor take the East, and he was awesome. And then I also worked with a guy, Carlos Duran, who forever was apprehensive about getting involved and finally did and became a past master of our lodge. And that was awesome. And then Ben Short. But Ben and Corey, they still today go, I see their posts on Facebook, and they're riding in their bike club on the weekends together. And like, talk about 2 guys, 2 phenomenal dudes who came through together that I think, continued this great effort at Waukegan, and seeing their success. I had wanted to free myself of the Monday night obligation and being secretary of this lodge, because it was over 300 members. And, and look, I had an incentive too. Like at my lodge, the bylaws said that I got something like $5 per paid dues member to keep track of it. So at the end of the year, I get like this per diem check. It was like $1,400 or something. Like, I got paid to be a secretary, but it is a lot of work. and maintaining relationships. So a secretary's got 300 plus people. That's a difficult job. And I just got burnt out. And, writing trestle boards and doing the stuff and trying to organize for a lodge with 300 members was difficult. And so I wanted to step out for a long time, but I couldn't do it until I knew there was some like real success in that lodge. And watching Carlos, Ben, and Corey go through the master seat, I was like, okay, it's safe to do now, right? Like you could like be the mama bird and let them go. I could fly, And so I did, and I started a new lodge, and it's just, like I said, it's a more once a month kind of thing. But that's the reason I left, was it just got burnt out with that particular lodge and having so many members, and also I felt like it was okay to do it because we had good dudes with good direction.
I don't know if you watch soccer, but in soccer teams, they talk about the goalkeepers union, where the goalkeepers from different teams all are sort of together, even though they're on opposite teams, because they sort of have a different perspective on the game than the other players do. And I'm a secretary of my lodge too. And I feel like there's a secretaries union where we all sort of, oh, I feel your pain. Yes. And we only have 155 members or so. And yeah, it's work. Like you said, just today,
22 members now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, just today we were talking about the heat in Washington here this weekend, and just today I was calling some of the old guys and saying, hey, how you doing? You need any help, kind of thing. And just going through those lists and keeping those relationships, like you said, is work. I was master twice, and I never knew what the secretary did until I became secretary. So one of the other things did Masonicon Chicago happen this year? Was that was virtual?
No,
right?
we did the 2020. And we were one of the only events that said we were going to do an event and still did an event. I worked hard with local public service on doing it safe. Nobody contracted anything, from the event. So we were A+ there. And this year, I was like, well, I did it in 2020. 2021 is going to be difficult also because of COVID. So let's not do it. And we were thinking about 2022. And the cadre of gentlemen that I know and I'm, in a contact with on a daily basis really are these guys like Brian Simmons, Dago Rodriguez, and Alex Powers, and Ryan Flynn, all these Masonicon dudes, Joe Martinez for Esotericon, and all these guys. I'm in contact with them all the time, and we're looking at the schedule for 2022. And I told you earlier, like I don't view education as a competition, but the last thing I want to do is make somebody choose. And so right? Like if a district calendar gets full, you start getting weird on your dates. You're like, oh, I don't want to have to do it on a Tuesday, but I guess we got to do it on a Tuesday. I didn't want to have to do it on a Tuesday, and I didn't want to have to compete with anybody or make anybody choose to go to something. So 2022 is out. And so I think we're going to really shoot for 2023 for another Masonicon Chicago. And it'll be the off year because Southern California, South Pasadena Masonic Lodge does their Masonicon. They did it in 2019. They were going to do it in 2021, but still pandemic. So they're doing 2022. And we're going to do ours in 2023. So I think we're going to alternate. Southern California and Chicago will go back and forth. It's kind of a unwritten thing to just allow people to get back and forth and be easy on their wallet. I mean, flying to these things, driving to these things is not cheap. So
it'll be like the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics. You can switch off.
That's right. Yeah. Offset them by a couple of years.
You talk about the calendar getting full. There does seem to be an explosion of, maybe explosion is the wrong word, an increase, probably a modest one, in the number of these conventions and education opportunities around the country. There's been I forget what they call it, the Northwest, help me out here.
Northwest
Conference of Masonic Education, or
something like that. Esotericism and Freemasonry Conference, I think they call it, up here, and that rotates around between Vancouver, Portland, and Seattle.
Yeah,
and there's one in Virginia now, and there's you guys in Chicago and South South California, as you just said. It does seem like the calendar is filling up, and that's cool, frankly.
It's really cool. Working with all these guys, we all thought, hey, let's put together just a website. And so there's like an aggregate website that we have up right now that's kind of in development. I'll plug that. It's MasonicConferences.com. Excuse me. And what that aims to do is just kind of show everybody, hey, where these things are, when they're happening, so people can plan. But yeah, they're all over the place, and they're really awesome. Each one has their own flavor, which is awesome. One that I really love that didn't happen the last couple of years, and I'm really hoping comes back. And if anybody involved with this, Jason, if you're listening, Jason Shammy, the Camp Masonry event is one of the most unique and coolest events. We got together at a Boy Scout camp, like 60, 70 brothers, maybe more, got together. And we had lectures by the fire, and degrees by Tiki Light. It was just really, really cool stuff. And those kind of unique experiences. Masonic conventions in and of themselves are so unique. They're indescribable. Having some vendors there, not having to wait for shipping, looking at your favorite Masonic products before you buy them, meeting, world-renowned speakers that maybe, what if you got to, sit in a room with Bob Davis, and chew his ear off about a great book that he's written, I should say Most Worshipful, right? But it's just a really cool experience. And I think there's nothing like it. And we all agree, these guys that are involved in planning, that hopefully one day we don't need them. But right now they're there to fulfill a want, right? If there's a want, then we're gonna make a product and put it out there and let people consume it. And I guess you could take the Steve Jobs route, which was kind of like invent something that they don't know that they need yet, and show them why they need it. But I think in Freemasonry, that kind of speaks for itself. We do have a lack of education, and as we've all agreed, whatever that education takes the shape of, whether that's educational charity, history, philanthropy, esoteric stuff, philosophical stuff, whatever it is, these conferences really are pretty well-rounded and offer a really great gamut of different choices. Esotericon being the caveat, right? It's all esoteric stuff, all philosophical stuff. And it's a lot of fun for those brothers who are so inclined.
Well, I think it's great that there's more of them, because it gives everybody more opportunities to go to them. Maybe somebody lives closer to California than Chicago and whatnot, and one of these days it'll be an opportunity for me to go and check one out. Never been to one, so that'll be interesting. I think the more the better, just like we talked about earlier, and the educational component is probably what they're seeking when they're going to these big conventions, right?
It's pretty regional too. Like, depending on what guys are looking for. In Chicago, I'll tell you right now, one of the main drivers and one of the main things that I stuck on with our branding, if you will, was also a really great networking opportunity, because Chicago's like a big business hub, and guys like to schmooze and talk and do business with other brothers. And so networking is a huge component of this also. And I think networking is big everywhere, really. But it was definitely a selling point, I think, for the Chicagoland brothers who were interested. But yeah.
Camp Masonry is the one in Chicago, in Ohio. Is that correct?
It is. Yeah. It was a phenomenal event in Ohio, and it was awesome because it was only like an hour-long flight for me. So I would just fly in, I think, to Toledo, and then we'd drive like 35 minutes. And it was awesome because the guy who picked me up the first time, anybody knows me knows I'm a pretty big NASA nerd. The guy who picked me up actually worked at the world's largest NASA vacuum chamber. And I was like, it was just cool. Story for another time.
I'm totally stealing that idea. camp masonry. I love it.
Yeah, there's actually, well, I'll tell the story anyway. There's the tag on my apron case back here is from an event in Northern Oregon where they do a degree in a cave every year, out in Burns, Oregon, which is in the middle of nowhere. And they have this gigantic lava tube cave out there, and they have stands in the whole 9 yards and do a degree in the cave. It was really, really cool.
It's all about the experience, man. That's so cool.
Yeah, exactly. And the content that you were saying earlier that you drew attention to, the content, I think sometimes it's kind of like Steve Jobs, where people join Masonry. I know for me, I joined Masonry. My daughter was this big, and I joined Masonry. I was the stay-at-home parent, and I did it at least partially because I longed for the company of other adult men, and I just wanted to, talk to other men. And I didn't know Masonic education was a thing. I didn't even know it existed. It was almost like the Steve Jobs thing you're talking about, where there's this content out there. There's these books out there that if you read, maybe you'll learn a little something. And I think that happens more frequently than we give ourselves credit for. I think that people learn these things.
Yeah, people come in for the fellowship and all manner of things, but they stay for the mix. Yeah.
And with that, looks like we're running out of time in our episode here today. So I would like to thank, on behalf of Steve and David and myself, just thank you again, RJ, for coming out to the podcast. We really appreciate you shining the light of your, we like that you're here. So thanks a lot for coming out.
Thank you so much. This has been a really great honor, privilege, and I was really excited to come on and do this. I know you guys have been doing the show 2 years now, and what an incredible milestone you guys hit. I hope you guys keep on doing it, and don't stop. Stay consistent. Keep doing this because guys need this. It's so important to get perspectives from different areas around the globe, and I think you guys are doing really important work. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And right back at you. You've certainly done your share of work in the Masonic world. So thanks for coming out. And on behalf of the Working Tools podcast, we are glad that you listened to us this evening and look forward to talking to you again. Goodbye.